1. I travel often for work, and whenever possible I bring my golf clubs to make my trips more bearable. This usually leads to me playing solo with random golfers, and luckily, I've had a great streak of pleasant pairings, thanks to the grace of the golf gods and my easygoing nature. However, my streak came to an end during my recent visit to Grand Rapids. I was easily looking forward to playing Pilgrim's Run, a course I wanted to play for a while. Unfortunately, my luck took a turn when I was paired with a husband and wife duo, and I sensed trouble from the tee box. We started on the 10th hole, a short par 4 where it's clearly designed to hit less than a driver and position the ball in an accessible part of the fairway, before a straightforward pitch to the green. To my surprise, the husband, who seemed to be in his late 50s, initially walked toward the forward tees, then realized the distance and returned to the tees I was playing from, driver in hand. The starter and I exchanged a knowing glance. My streak was about to be broken. The husband dribbled his driver off the tee and off he went. However, the wife turned out to be a sweetheart and a surprisingly solid golfer. While she was not a good golfer by any means, she consistently got her weight onto her front side and made solid contact. Fast forward to the 10th green, our first hole, and the husband began berating his wife for unintentionally walking through my line and talking during my putt. Although these things didn't bother me, and I made sure to let her know. By the 3rd hole, the husband had developed a routine of taking 5 practice swings before every shot, going through an elaborate pre-shot routine, changing clubs multiple times, and continued to scold his wife for infractions that he himself was committing, talking during my swing, walking in my line, and so on. He made 3 excuses for every terrible shot and stubbornly played from the same tees as me, despite not hitting his driver as far as my 5-iron. He would drop off his wife at her ball and then leave her to walk or rely on me for transportation. He got upset when we were put on the clock and blamed our delay on stopping to get food, conveniently ignoring the 2 or 3 fairway mulligans he was taking on each hole, and the list went on. As the round progressed, I found myself in a difficult situation, with nowhere to escape. As the group ahead of us was a foursome, I had to do something. That's when I decided to blow so much smoke up the wife's ass she was on the brink of carbon monoxide poisoning. I began calling her BMW, short for a driving machine. Every time she made contact with the ball, I made her feel like a member of the Ryder Cup team, making the final stretch down the 18th hole. Regardless of what the husband did, I completely ignored him. It became a game within a game for me, trying new and insidious ways to mindfuck the guy. It only took a hole and a half for him to start getting annoyed, and by the time we made the turn, I was certain he was having a miserable time. In the end, I shot 8 over, and his wife claimed it was the best she'd played in years. Unfortunately, I never did find out how the husband fared. Don't be a dick. 2. Now before I start, here is a bit of context for this situation. I work in the boat industry as an engine tech and parts painter. I know, quite a broad range right there. Anyway, the company I work for is quite old, and the building I work in is even older. The heating system is trash, and we really lack anything in the way of air conditioning. And it's boiling outside right now. Earlier today, I had started overheating really quickly as the temperature rose in the building. I have a medical condition where my body can't regulate temperature well, meaning I am at risk of passing out. I was going to go get a bottle of water from the fridge to help me cool down when I was stopped by one of the company's managers, Kyle.
Where are you going?
I was only going to get some water.
You're supposed to be working right now. You can get water during the coffee break.
I don't think you understand that I can actually be in danger from this heat right now. So could I please go get 1 bottle of water?
No, you're not authorized to leave your work before the clock strikes. Now shut up and get back to work.
Roger that. Keep in mind that this conversation was held in front of my coworkers. Cue malicious compliance. I got back to work, making sure to put in some extra coal just to make sure I made up for lost time. Basically, I was forcing my body into shock, and heat stroke was just around the corner. Fast forward around 30 minutes. I had to tell my coworkers through my strained breath that I don't feel too good. Which was actually even worse now, as I was working on deck of one of these boats, give or take 3 meters above the floor. When I made my way towards the ladder to climb down, I only got out a very strained, shit, as I fell off the back, and was headed straight for the concrete floor below me. Lucky for me, some coworkers reacted fast enough and managed to catch me before my head was split open on the floor. I woke up in an ambulance around an hour later. The EMTs were checking my vitals and were actually helping me. My boss came up to the door and asked me what happened. I told him exactly as I told you guys, and I also told him to check with my coworkers if he didn't believe me. Long story boring, I was brought to the hospital for a checkup, just to make sure I actually didn't suffer any kind of trauma from the fall. A buddy of mine came with me to make sure I got there and back safe. A few hours passed and my buddy got a call. He picked it up, and it was Kyle. My buddy handed me the phone, and I heard Kyle on the other end apologizing for actually almost getting me killed. The short version is he was heavily reprimanded for what he told me and was put on watch. Didn't lose his position though, so I guess I didn't fully win. But he was liable for the medical compensation for my situation. I did forgive him, and just to rub it in a bit, I just had to ask him, am I authorized to get water next time? And my buddy just laughed. I already got OSHA on the line and they're launching an investigation into this, so if nothing else, I just made Kyle's week even more horrible. Also, for those who are wondering, Kyle is pretty new and basically a bit of a brick? Can I call him that? Whatever, he's rough around the edges and generally doesn't believe people when it comes to their personal health. He's got that kind of, if you can talk, then you can work mentality. So in a way, he kinda deserved this. OSHA will have a field day with his actions. 3. Way back, I ran live sound as a fill-in when another engineer couldn't show up. I once worked a show at a bar venue that was a converted automotive shop in deep Elam, Dallas. If you know, you know. For those who don't, the stage and audience area is tiny. It fits 100 people. This is important information. This is not an arena. It is a glorified hole in the wall. Another thing to note is that my soundboard, and by extension my hands controlling it, are hidden from everyone's view. Metal band begins setting up. Both guitars bring full stacks, that's 2 4x12 speaker cabinets, and an amp head, about 6 feet tall each. Whatever, it's overkill even for an arena show. Only one of those 8 speakers gets a microphone. But I guess they like to look cool and intimidating. Get to soundcheck and one guitarist has his settings dialed in appropriately, but the volume on the other is far too loud. I ask him politely to turn it down so that stage noise is not battling the front of house speakers. After every song, he nudges up the volume. I tell him repeatedly through my talkback mic on his monitor to stop doing so. Eventually, not even halfway through their set, I'd had enough and just steadily turned down his guitar's level in the front of house. About halfway through, he gives me the "turn my guitar up in my monitor" gesture. I reached down, muted his guitar in his monitor. It was already turned all the way down, just not muted. Pretended to adjust some things and signaled for him to test that. He does so and seems quite pleased. Placebo achieved. I have never felt such joy fielding audience complaints when I got to explain that the reason their favorite band sounded like shit was because the guitarist thought he was at a stadium, and that the audience was hearing his guitar through his cheap and badly EQ'd double stack, not the front of house. Fuck around and find out. All he had to do was stop turning his amp up. Extra info. Everything on the stage has a mic, and stage noise is ideally kept to a minimum. For most gigs, even stadium shows, a 20 to 40 watt amp is more than sufficient, and sounds better at lower volumes. A 200 plus watt amp only sounds good loud. Bands that bring full stacks often don't understand that the audience is not supposed to hear their speaker cabinets. They're supposed to hear how I've mic'd the speaker cabinets. Your speaker cabinet sounds terrible outside of the room you've tuned it to. And it's my job to make you sound good in this room. You don't need 8 speakers. I'm only miking 1, 2 if you're particularly well known and your writer specifies it. If you don't work with me, you will sound like an amateur every single time. 4. I play a teamwork-oriented first-person shooter, which I won't name, and a long time ago I established a clan of about 30 to 40 active players, who were all really good players and close friends in the game. Some of these friends and I wanted to get into the competitive scene, but since it requires around 35 players on each team per game, my group was never able to consistently pull the numbers, and expanding was getting difficult. So I decided to merge my clan with a bigger clan, with the stipulation that I would lead the competitive aspect of this merged group. Things went great for a long time, but eventually, I found that the competitive scene was just too much to handle. So I bowed out and passed the reins off to someone I trusted. I stopped playing the game entirely for about 2 months, and upon my return I found that things had changed a lot in the clan. People who were given leadership positions who weren't able to run things very well. I found out that one of my close friends had been mistreated and banned from the server, so I decided to formally leave the clan. This was pretty amicable, no real hard feelings. Sometime later, I was approached by another competitive team to play for them, and I accepted, thinking that since I wasn't running things, it would be a smoother experience. I approached a few of my close friends from my previous clan to inquire about joining me at the new team. Personally, I felt that I wasn't doing anything wrong here because I recruited these people myself, and I had essentially gifted this clan 30 to 40 people, which really helped them grow into a pillar of the game's community. The clan had grown to be the biggest community in the game, with the most popular server, which I essentially ran myself and turned it into the game's most reliable experienced player server. Because of all this, I figured that taking a few of my close friends with me to another team wouldn't have been such a big deal. Anyways, they declined my invitation and I went on my way until the owner of the clan approached me for trying to poach his players. He ended up banning me from his Discord and the game server which I had previously run. To be honest with you, I didn't really care about all this. There were other servers cropping up which were good, and I felt like I wasn't missing out on much. But I did feel a bit slighted since I helped that community grow so much, and all I wanted was to play with some of my close friends again, who I personally recruited and gifted to that team. So, here's where the real PettyRevenge comes. Sometime later, maybe about 5 months, I remembered a meeting I had with the creator and leader of this clan. He brought us in to discuss the clan's logo, which he felt could become a problem in the future with increased growth of the community. The clan's logo was a Native American war chief. I remember telling him it wasn't a huge deal and we'd probably be fine, as long as we didn't disrespect anything. This was all happening around the time of the Redskins controversy, so the clan leader was right to be a bit concerned. Remembering this meeting, I decided to plot my revenge. I approached a Native American advocacy group about whether or not they felt the logo was offensive, and they confirmed that it was indeed offensive and that they would back me to get it removed by appealing to the creators of the game. So that's exactly what I did. I went to the game developers and reported the logo, and eventually they were forced to change their logo. Nobody knew it was me who did this. Behind the scenes of this logo swap, the community apparently was going through some internal strife, where some of the community felt like it wasn't being run well, same as my complaints when I left. And there was about 30 of the clan's most experienced players who all wrote a letter to the leader of the clan, stating that they would leave if things were not changed. To add insult to injury, a vast majority of the clan hated the new logo, which was changed to a very generic soldier man. Essentially, the whole clan was in upheaval about this. They all felt it was soft and stupid of them to change the logo, especially to something that was so generic and uninspiring. Also, apparently, there was some feeling of being ripped off as they outsourced the logo to someone on Fiverr, who apparently just stole the logo from somewhere else. Anyways, what ended up happening was the entire clan got together to discuss things, and they weren't able to come to a consensus, so the leader of the clan literally just deleted the Discord and game servers. My revenge was complete. 5. I worked for a building supply company starting in January, and things were going well with the job at first. The pay was not so great, but the hours were good and the management did their job. But when one of the managers left, it created a problem. Besides leaving the obvious void in the workspace, one of my other managers was planning on going on a vacation, and she couldn't put it off. So in comes manager Reinhard. The last-minute replacement. Reinhard has a few quirks that make no one like him or want to work with him, to put it mildly. He was a parole officer before working with us, so the only real managing experience he had was managing felons, and it showed. He would treat the lazier workers like his prisoners, constantly nagging them, constantly up their butt when there was no good reason to be. He said he wanted one of the cashiers fired after being there for not even a week, and wrote another guy up for talking back to him, when all he said was his handwriting was perfectly legible, in a very calm, non-aggressive way. Reinhard still took that as an insult and wrote him up. The worst part was being his friend, which is what he thought I was. I got the luxury treatment by being allowed to go outside to smoke with him, only I didn't smoke. And I hate the smell. But it's not like I could say no, and believe me, I wanted to say no with the stuff I heard him say about women. Picture this. A short, skinny, crackhead-looking dude who somehow got to be my manager, talking about women like they were all into him, saying stuff like,
"Yeah, that girl in there wants to have me."
Now, I'm a straight guy, but I can tell you dude was no looker, and the ramped sexism wasn't doing him any favors. Then at one point, a customer walks in by herself with children, and Reinhard, with the joke of the century, calls her a walking divorce. And that actually gave me an idea. What if she heard him say that? Wouldn't she call the store to file a complaint? She would if she heard him saying that stupid crap about her, but then again, she wouldn't have to. My girlfriend could do that for her. So she calls in, and nothing. Reinhard comes out of the office and explains that the customer must have misheard him, and the head manager was unfortunately buying it. So I had to step in and talk to the head manager and let him know what he had been saying, and he finally believed it. He said there was no way the customer complaint could have been faked with my testimony. And there was one less asshole in the workplace. I hear he works at a Subway now. Oof. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 274. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Please boop the like button before you go, thank you. If you'd like to get the videos a little bit earlier, you can support me through Patreon for any amount, however little, however much you please a month. You can also buy Hellfreezer merchandise, and you can make donations through videos and streams as another way to support the channel on a more one-off basis. This is not required to keep enjoying the videos, but it helps pay the bills, and I appreciate it. Alrighty, let's see. No more business, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is... Not sure when this video is going up, but it's similar to one I asked earlier in the week. Could have been yesterday, could be tomorrow, who knows. Retro things that just kind of snuck in and went away. Today, shockingly, is going to be about food. What is a food stuff that was really popular at one point, maybe you really liked it, and it just disappeared, never to be heard from again? For me, it's a chocolate bar. There's quite a few, but the one I'm going to talk about is called a Mars Delight. It was very yummy. It had caramel and all sorts of other yummy stuff in it. Came in like a 2-finger pack. And they just disappeared one day and never heard from them again. Sometimes bars they'll bring things back out as a sort of like a nostalgia thing. That's never happened to that. I think they brought fuses, which was another thing I liked for a while. Although I didn't know about it. I don't think they were released in the UK. But yeah, Mars Delight, whatever happened to them? Please do let me know about some of your favorites that just disappeared because you thought they were popular, but apparently they weren't, in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. My throat's sounding a bit rough, isn't it? I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.